exactly what needs to be done. The report is due, the proposal is waiting, the workout clothes are right there on the chair. But instead of starting, you feel yourself circling. You check your phone, pour another coffee, scroll a little more. Hours disappear and the task is untouched. The painful part is not the work itself. Once you finally begin, it usually feels manageable, even easy. The real battle is in those first few minutes before you start. That invisible resistance is the true enemy. Procrastination is not laziness, it is a neurological barrier. Your brain is wired with a start friction system designed to conserve energy. Before committing to action, it runs a threat detection loop. Is this safe? Is this rewarding? Is this worth the energy? When the answer is unclear, it stalls. That stall is what you feel as procrastination. The solution is not willpower. Forcing yourself to bulldoze through resistance rarely works and burns valuable mental energy. The real solution is to hack the barrier itself. You do not need to climb over the wall. You need a protocol that makes the wall collapse. That protocol is the first step code. Here is the principle. The brain overestimates the cost of starting because it imagines the entire task at once. But if you shrink the task down to the smallest executable unit, you bypass the barrier and trigger momentum. Neuroscience explains why. The basal ganglia, the structure in your brain that governs habit loops, is activated not when you finish a task, but when you initiate a microaction that signals a routine is starting. This microaction creates a dopamine spark that shifts the brain from resistance into execution. The secret is not to think about the whole task, but to install a predefined first step so small the brain cannot resist. Let me give you the framework. Step 1. Define the smallest physical action connected to the task. If you need to write, the first step is opening the document and writing a single sentence. If you need to work out, the first step is putting on your shoes. If you need to make a call, the first step is dialing the number. Notice that each example is physical, visible, and requires almost zero energy. Step 2. Commit only to the first step. This is critical. Tell yourself you only need to complete that microaction. Do not promise yourself the whole workout, the entire report, or the full project. The brain resists large commitments but accepts micro ones. Step 3. Once the first step is done, momentum takes over. This is the psychological principle known as behavioral activation. Starting creates an open loop in the brain, and your nervous system wants to close it. In other words, once you put on the shoes, the brain wants to move. Once you write the sentence, the brain wants to continue. Once you dial the number, the brain wants to speak. Momentum is now on your side. This is why the first step code works. It transforms a paralyzing task into an unavoidable action chain. Let's go deeper into why this is so powerful. The prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for executive control, burns significant glucose when it faces uncertainty or large-scale planning. This is why thinking about an entire project exhausts you before you even begin. But when the scope is compressed to one tiny action, the energy cost drops dramatically, and the prefrontal cortex releases its brake. That release is what you feel as ease of starting. You have essentially tricked the system. Here is a concrete example. A client of mine was stuck on writing an important presentation. For weeks he avoided it, spiraling into stress. I gave him the first step code. Sit down and write one headline, nothing more. He resisted the idea at first, but once he wrote the headline, he naturally wrote the first slide, then the second. Within 2 hours, the presentation was half finished. The resistance was gone. He did not break procrastination with willpower. He broke it with the first step. Let's refine the protocol further by installing a ritual trigger. You want the first step to become automatic so your brain does not debate it every time. For writing, the ritual might be opening your laptop and typing today's date. For working out, the ritual might be filling your water bottle and lacing your shoes. For phone calls, the ritual might be writing the name of the person on a notepad. The ritual must be repeatable and identical each time. Over time, your brain associates the ritual with action, and the barrier weakens permanently. This is habit formation at its core. Cue, routine, reward. The ritual is the cue. The micro-action is the routine. The sense of progress is the reward. Once that loop is installed, procrastination loses its grip. Another critical element is speed. The longer you sit in hesitation, the stronger the barrier becomes. So the protocol must include a rule of immediate execution. As soon as the trigger appears, you perform the first step within 5 seconds. This prevents the prefrontal cortex from generating excuses. The faster you execute, the less resistance can build. To cement this, I teach the 2-minute rule. If a task can be initiated in 2 minutes or less, do it instantly. Not finished, just initiated. This rule kills micro-procrastination before it metastasizes into full paralysis. Think of it as a firewall for your productivity. Now let's stack one more layer: public commitment. If you want to weaponize the first step code, tell someone your micro-action. For example, send a message that says, "I am opening the document now," or "I am putting on my shoes." The act of declaring the first step to another person creates external accountability, which makes execution almost inevitable. You will rarely fail once you announce it, because the social cost of not following through is higher than the energy cost of action. Put this all together and you have the anti-procrastination protocol. Define the first step, ritualize it, execute it immediately, and if needed, declare it. That is how you dissolve resistance in seconds and create automatic forward movement. The point is not to finish everything in one go. The point is to shift the brain from freeze into motion. Once you are in motion, the rest follows. What you have been calling laziness is simply a mismanaged start sequence. Fix the sequence and procrastination dies. The truth about procrastination is that it is not a character flaw. It is a design flaw in how the brain processes tasks. The brain is not optimized for modern work. It is optimized for survival. It wants to conserve energy and avoid uncertain outcomes. Every big project feels like a potential threat because it demands energy with no guaranteed reward. That is why even opening an email can feel like climbing a mountain. You are not lazy. You are facing a miscalibrated threat detection system. The first step code is how you recalibrate it. Let me show you how to implement this in real life so it stops being theory and becomes execution. Start by creating a library of first steps for every major category of your work and life. For writing, your first step might be typing a title. For fitness, your first step might be tying your shoes. For communication, your first step might be opening your contacts list. For finances, your first step might be logging into your account. The goal is to remove decision fatigue by having predefined entry points. When you feel resistance, you do not need to think, you just deploy the code. The next refinement is chaining. Once you execute a first step, immediately line up a second micro-step. This is called stacking momentum. For example, if your first step is opening a document, your second might be writing one bullet point. If your first step is putting on workout clothes, your second might be walking to the door. Chaining prevents you from stalling after the initial spark. Another advanced technique is environmental leverage. Place triggers in your environment that make the first step unavoidable. If you want to read at night, place the book on your pillow in the morning. If you want to drink more water, place a glass on your desk before you start work. If you want to practice guitar, put it on the chair you usually sit in. The environment now cues the micro-action before your brain can resist. Over time, the environment does the heavy lifting, not your willpower. Let's add a final layer: reward acceleration. The brain continues actions that give fast dopamine returns. So after completing a first step, give yourself a tiny but real reward. This could be checking off a box, standing up for a stretch, or a small sip of coffee. The key is to link progress with pleasure. That association wires your brain to crave starting instead of avoiding. Now you have the complete anti-procrastination system. Predefined first steps, chaining micro-actions, environmental triggers, and accelerated rewards. Together, they dismantle the barrier of start resistance and convert paralysis into automatic forward motion. And here is the real breakthrough. Once you practice this enough, the first step code stops being a trick and becomes an identity. You stop identifying as the person who struggles to begin. You become the person who always moves first. That identity shift is what top performers live by. They do not wait for the perfect mood or unlimited energy. They move, and by moving, they create the energy and the mood. You can do the same. Tomorrow, you will face resistance. Your brain will throw excuses at you. It will whisper that you are tired, that the task is too big, that you can do it later. That is when you deploy the code. Shrink the task, execute the first step, and let momentum carry you. Every time you do it, you are rewiring your brain to associate action with ease instead of resistance. The more you repeat it, the weaker procrastination becomes until it loses its power completely. Do not underestimate the leverage here. One micro-action can alter the trajectory of your entire day. One small movement forward can unlock hours of momentum that would have been wasted in hesitation. The difference between a wasted week and a breakthrough week is often just one first step executed at the right moment. That is the edge this protocol gives you. You no longer need to fight procrastination with guilt, shame, or brute force. You dismantle it strategically and replace it with a system that makes starting automatic. That is how elite performers operate, and now you have the code to join them. You now hold the anti-procrastination first step code. Install it, use it, and you will never again be trapped in the paralysis of waiting to feel ready. Action is no longer something you hope for, it is something you trigger on command. And if you want more of these codes, protocols that rewire your brain for discipline, influence, and unstoppable execution, subscribe to Success Code. Each video is another piece of mental software for your arsenal, designed to give you unfair advantages in a world full of hesitation. Subscribe now, because the next protocol we release may be the one that eliminates your next biggest barrier and propels you ahead while everyone else is still stuck thinking about starting.